All right, hi everyone, Philip from Romantic. We're talking about generative CAD. I think most of you are probably not architects, so I'm rather trying, to throw over the fence some thoughts of how we think the new revolution in digital design looks like. Let's talk about architecture real quick, right? There are three key characteristics any architecture office. The first one is it's a super low profit margin business. It's sad, and if you don't believe me, if you have an architect as a friend, ask him, and then he's quite frustrated because you don't make a lot of money, even though you have huge, projects and you have a lot of responsibility. It just is like it is. The second thing is the majority of work is CAD work. So if you walk into an architecture office, people will be there working on screens, right? They click around, everything's super still. Maybe there's some doing a model or so, but nowadays they're all on their screen. And then also, we have a very low computational design adoption. How come, right? Yes, we have CAD, so again, this is the software people digitally design with, but it hasn't really changed in the last 20 to 30 years. So again, you still click on a screen, you draw actually a plan, or you model a 3D model. And of course, the tools advanced, but no one's really using them to the full extent. So you have like parametric design, you have computational design, all this advanced crazy stuff that we've also seen from the bigger offices here. But out there in the architecture world, a lot of people, just remain with their like 2D plans and stuff like that. I want to come back to the middle part here, to the CAD. I mean, if now you want to solve this problem, a little bit like basically because you are under pressure as an architecture office, you want to of course tackle the CAD efficiency, right? Because the thing is also, architects, they have a model already in their head, and this is super efficient. It works very well, especially with generating, visions, ideas, and stuff like that. So the majority of CAD work is actually only translating this thought into a digital representation to document it, so people then can go along and build it, for example, right? Which is not entirely true. Of course, you iterate also with your model a little bit, but most of the time, you just spend time translating because you have your thought already in your head. This kind of brings me to the question, since we're here in London for the Gen AI, can Gen AI help? Help me generate this 3D model, this digital representation. We've seen, today, text, put a check mark there, right? Images, check mark, videos, we've seen this, check mark. 3D assets, actually also, so for example, if you want to ask for a Super Mario as a digital asset, so you can put it in your gaming engine, that kind of works already, but that's like, doesn't help in architecture, right? Because we build stuff that needs to work in reality. That's actually quite difficult. So when we come to manufacturing or CAD, so what I want to say here is exactly those outputs that need to work in reality, I don't know, right? So we need to ask ourselves, can Gen AI help? To answer this question, what does it take? I kind of want to look at the process from the output, right? So and it's also same in engineering or any other, we have actual outputs that need to work in reality, as I said. So in this case, it's a building. And when I design it, I am in a digital space, but I need to, of course, simulate what's happening in reality, right? I need to make 100% sure, for example, that the width is X and the height is Y. So I need to fully trust that this digital representation is parametric. It really it follows metrics. I can really tell how long, high certain things are. And then also you can see at the top, I kind of, in today's world, you kind of would think, that you take, for example, an energy analysis or a cost analysis early into my design so I can optimize it to face today's problems, right? So that's also kind of the problem, because so the things we've seen earlier, for example, with the image generation, it's a one-shot prompt almost, right? You say I want Will Smith eating spaghetti, and then you get something out of it, and then you can go back and do reprompting and hope it's getting better. That's not happening for architects or engineers, right? They need to be in full control of what's happening. They need to trust that those metrics are right. So the thing is, how could Gen AI look here, to solve this problem? And the idea where Romantic is working on is that you have a Copilot with natural language. You can create your thought, right? You have it in your head. You just put it out there, similar like the artist we just seen, but now in architecture, and it just generates this 3D model, but in the right way. But as I said, you need to stick to your control. That's why what you need to add is those basically some kind of interface of your code behind to tweak certain measurements quite freely and interactively, right? So that's why we have the the width and the length, and I can totally control what parameter this should be on. So this is what we're doing at Romantic. We have one product already out there. It's called Raven. It's basically building on top of an existing CAD suite, which is quite powerful. But basically, as you can see here, you have your chat interface as you know it. You have basically full control of your model to the left. And on the canvas, you see basically all these parameters you can slide, you can put in there exactly as you want to. And you have your 3D visualization to the right, where you can also work with. So basically, you stay in full control, but certain things you just like, I don't know, I want to have 35 instead of 40 stories, for example, or I want to have a diamond-shaped facade or like a rectangular panel. You just type it in, and it does it for you, right? So where's the value of this, right? I brought two lenses to talk about a little bit on a high level. Of course, also since we're so early stage in this revolution, we have to imagine a little bit into the future, right? So this is not necessarily based on actual projects, but I think the first thing I want to talk about is efficiency for experts. So let's take architects in this case. Of course, if you follow my thought, right, you would expect you can model faster, because as I just said, you just say, this is what I want. It just takes people a couple of seconds. It comes up with it. The good thing is, the reasoning models that we have today, they are good in math. And what we're doing as architects is geometry. And geometry is math. So kind of, with a little tweaking of Romantic, we actually come up with these shapes for you way quicker. We also say better modeling. What does that mean? So I said earlier, right, there are so many things you should optimize your design for, even in early stages. Cost, energy efficiency, all that stuff. You have these tools out there, but no one uses them, right? Because they're complex, they're shitty to use, if I'm honest, So we make this also accessible. So it is somewhere there in the CAD software, but we face it in our Copilot, and you just say, I want to have a summit analysis, boom, we just do it for you. The other thing is, and it's actually almost the most important thing, so we see automated workflows as one thing that makes, that kind of solves the low profit margin problem for architecture businesses a little bit. And that is, you really build yourself an automated workflow. For example, before you had your, facade panel, someone says, shit, we need to change it 2 meters to the right or something. 2 junior architects spend 2 weeks applying those changes in a plan. Now being parametric and having these CAD workflows and looking at them way more as scripting, it takes maybe 5 seconds. You just say, adapt, right? So we have this already out there. It's not a new wheel or something that needs to be invented, but it's the adoption of this is super little. And I think mainly because architects are, visual people. They don't want to code, right? So they say, I want to sketch and think, leave me alone with your funky codes and software. But what a Copilot, like a Gen AI and CAD could do is that you move from a very low adoption rate to a high adoption rate, at least of vibe scripting architects, so that, for example, they can at least understand the scripts that the computational design team in the office came up with. And then they can interact with them, and now just they say, all right, panels need to be 2 meters to the left, and it just does it, right? So when we look at the value now, for sure, looking at the 35 people architecture office, you get 10% efficiency because of all these things I just mentioned. It means for them more than 4,000 hours freed of CAD work, only CAD work. So they can come up with another medium-sized project with the same resources, right? So that's actually big for architects. I want to go on, and the second lens I want to talk about is democratizing this. So before, you need to go to university, offices invest a lot of money to enable their architects to learn a certain CAD suite. So kind of, high entry costs to really be a cool CAD expert. But with the Copilot, same with Copilots in coding, we just democratize, right? So we bring CAD literacy beyond designers. And where this is applicable, so we see use case from Romantic is also for real estate developers, for example, right? They probably do a little architecture project in the beginning of any acquisition decision, right? They kind of want to see what's possible, what's the numbers I get out of it, the business case, sunlight analysis, wind analysis. Here in the City of London, it's actually quite strict. So this Copilot enables those now to do it themselves, right? So also a lot of value in democratizing, also to people who want to 3D print their little, toy for their kids, or a piping connection or something. They don't know how to do this before. They just put it in the Copilot, boom, they get it. So let's sum up and rewind, right? 3 things I kind of want to state here from our perspective. generative CAD needs control and probably human control. But what I mean by this is, and you all understand this, you need to make sure that certain things are the exact way as you want it to be, because otherwise they will never be translated into reality, and then they have absolutely no value for architects or engineers. The second thing is, yes, we see significant value and efficiency in democratizing, as I just said, right? And the third thing is, that's like kind of new on the slide, it's unavoidable. Think about, even like an expert programmer is coding anymore without cursor, so like a Copilot, because it just makes so much sense. It's even more fun, to be honest. And we are pretty sure that this journey continues from text, image, videos, 3D assets, eventually to CAD, and we're working on this, so we see already it's possible. So you can count on it in 2 years' time. Basically, every architect will use it. Happy to stay in touch, and thanks.
Let's give it up for Jay.